the system, how I learned to stop fighting it and start using it. I want to tell you about the morning I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man looking back at me. It wasn't dramatic. There was no breaking point, no single moment where everything collapsed. It was just an ordinary morning after another ordinary night of drinking, and I walked into the bathroom half asleep, turned on the light and saw him. Dark, unshaven, hair going in every direction, bags under the eyes that looked like they'd been packed for a long trip, skin the color of old concrete. I touched my face. Is that me? It was me. 6 years gone, 5 in prison, 1 more dissolved in a bottle, and this is what was left. This gray, hollow, used-up version of a man who once had plans, had drive, had a son to raise and scores to settle and a life to build. I stood under a cold shower for a long time, fully dressed at first. Then I changed. Then I went to the kitchen, poured what was left of the vodka straight into the toilet, made myself a proper breakfast, eggs, bread, tea, and sat down to think. Where do I start? That was the only question, not the big question. Not how do I rebuild everything or how do I get revenge or how do I become someone again. Just the first step, the smallest possible move. I picked up the phone and started calling people. Not for any reason. Just to hear voices, just to ask how they were doing, what they were up to, whether anything was moving in the world outside my 4 walls. And something moved. A friend told me about oil. A man he knew was bringing cooking oil from a neighboring republic. The scheme looked simple on the surface, the kind of simple that looks obvious in hindsight and impossible in practice. Here is how it worked. Our regional governor writes a letter to the neighboring republic. Formal, official, stamped. The letter says something like, "Our people are struggling. Please help us, brothers." The neighboring republic, moved by fraternal solidarity and by what was waiting for them behind the curtain, agrees to send aid. Oil, food, whatever was needed. The paperwork was clean. The visas were stamped. Everything looked legal because on paper it was legal. The oil arrived at customs. And that's where simple ended. The customs officials needed something, not officially, not on paper, just an understanding, a handshake, a number agreed upon in a back room while the documents sat waiting on a desk. Someone paid. The oil started moving. Workers were hired to push the barrels across. Physical work, night shift, the kind of job where you don't ask questions and you finish before dawn. We were almost through when the floodlights came on. All at once, from every direction, special forces in silhouette, shouting. The whole scene straight out of a Soviet action film, except in a Soviet action film, you know your role. In real life, you just stand there for 1 second calculating whether you're the hero or the extra. I was standing at the edge of the light, and directly in front of me, a river. I didn't think about it, I went in. Cold water, dark. I held my breath and swam until the lights were behind me and there was nothing but the sound of current and my own heartbeat. I don't know what happened to the others. I surfaced on the far bank, moved through the dark and disappeared. For a week I stayed with a friend, a former police officer, curtains drawn, waiting. He made calls through his contacts and came back after 7 days with a verdict. You can move around, but watch your back. He explained something to me that I hadn't fully understood before. In the law enforcement system of the former Soviet Union, there was a practice. When someone was arrested, the people around them, friends, acquaintances, anyone connected, were also brought in. Not because they had done anything, because their families would pay to get them out. It was a business, a system within the system. This is how it works here, I thought. This is how it has always worked. And then I needed a simple document. A certificate of residence. Something any citizen should be able to walk in and get in 20 minutes. My first instinct, shaped by years of living in this environment, was to find someone who knew someone. Pay them. Have them go get it for me. I caught myself mid-thought. Why? I went myself, stood in line, paid the official fee, a few coins, essentially nothing, and walked out with the document in my hand. That's it. If I had gone through a middleman, I would have paid 100 times more, maybe more than that. I stood on the street outside that government building, and something clicked into place. The entire system, every layer of it from the bottom clerk to the minister in his office, had been constructed to make the official path feel impossible, complicated, dangerous, so that everyone would naturally flow toward the unofficial path, the back-channel path, the path where money changed hands quietly and everyone took their percentage. It wasn't corruption as a flaw in the system. It was the system. And once I understood that, really understood it, not as a complaint but as a fact of the landscape, everything looked different. As George Orwell wrote, the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. In this system, the truth was simple. The rules existed to be navigated, not followed, and the men who thrived were the ones who understood that navigation. I had spent years being angry about this, fighting it, getting burned by it, going to prison partly because of it. I was done being angry. I bought tomatoes. Not metaphorically, actual tomatoes, a minibus load, cheap at the source because that's where they were grown and nobody wanted to move them. I drove to the capital. I hadn't even reached the market properly when people surrounded the vehicle, from all sides, hands reaching in, asking prices, passing money, taking bags. I couldn't keep up. I couldn't count fast enough. In 40 minutes, maybe less, everything was gone. I stood next to an empty minibus, holding more money than I had expected to make in a week. 3 times what I paid in one day. I paid back what I owed, went back for more, and ran that route 5 times in a single month. By the end of it, I had contacts, I had cash, and I had something more valuable than either. I had proof that the basic principle worked. Buy where it's cheap, sell where it's needed, move fast, don't overcomplicate it. An old truth, older than money itself. But sometimes you have to discover it yourself before it becomes real. People I had grown up with told me, stay in the capital. They said what everyone says, the city is where it happens. More money moving, more connections, more opportunity. I had already been thinking the same thing. I gave my apartment to my ex-wife. Not to her, to my son. She would keep the walls and the roof, but the reason was the boy. He needed stability. I needed to move. I rented a place in the capital, paid 8 months up front from what I had earned, and spent 3 days lying on the floor of an empty apartment staring at the ceiling. 3 days of thinking. Not about revenge, that thought had softened. Not gone, but quieter, like a fire that's burned down to coals. I thought about the system. Here is what I had learned. In the former Soviet republics, there is a specific mechanism for government procurement. Any company can approach a state institution and offer to supply goods or services. The institution doesn't go looking, you come to them. And here is where the system begins. You approach the head of procurement, you explain what you're offering. You tell him quietly that there will be something for him. He listens. He sends you upstairs. The next person listens. You tell him the same thing, and so on all the way up. By the time you reach the level where a decision gets made, you have made promises to 5 or 6 people. Each one expects their percentage. In exchange, each one will sign what needs to be signed, approve what needs approving, and clear the path. Your product, let's say it costs 1 unit, gets valued on paper at 10 units. The state institution buys it at the inflated price. You collect the full payment, cash out, and distribute the shares downward through the chain. Everyone gets their piece. Everyone is happy. Until the other agencies find out. Because here is the part that catches people. The prosecutors know about this system. The financial police know. The tax authority knows. Even the fire inspectors know. and every single one of them expects their share too. You have already distributed your earnings 8 ways. Now 5 more hands are out. The men who made the deal will not help you. The minister who signed the letter will look at you with complete calm and say, "I've never met this person in my life." This is not a flaw. This is the architecture. I had seen men destroyed by this. I had almost been destroyed by it myself, not because the system was unpredictable, but because I hadn't understood its logic. The logic is this: everyone takes their share or everyone walks away. There is no third option. Kazakhstan, I noticed, had a slightly different version. There, if an official saw real potential in what you were building, he would become an active partner, not just a handout for a one-time payment, but someone invested in your growth. His percentage came from your success, which meant he wanted you to succeed. That is a different kind of corruption. Arguably, for a businessman trying to build something, it is a more functional one. I am not recommending any of this. I am describing reality as I found it. As Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote, the degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. I had entered those prisons. I knew exactly what degree of civilization surrounded me. The question was never whether to change the system. One man cannot change a system built across generations and soaked into the habits of millions. The question was simpler: do you understand where you are, or do you keep pretending you're somewhere else? When I was young, I pretended. I acted as though honesty would be rewarded because I was honest. I acted as though the rules meant what they said because I believed in rules. I paid for that with 5 years of my life. Now I was older, not harder, clearer. I didn't want millions. I never wanted millions. I wanted enough. A phone, a roof, food on the table, a car that starts, and enough left over to pay my son's university fees without panicking. That's it. That was the whole ambition. And to get that in this place, in this time, in this system, you don't fight. You navigate. You learn the terrain. You find where the paths actually run, not where the signs say they run. You move accordingly. The man in the mirror that morning, gray, hollow, finished looking. He didn't know any of this yet. The man walking out of that government office with a simple document and coins in his pocket. He was starting to understand. The man standing next to an empty minibus, counting money he hadn't expected. He was getting there. I was still getting there. But I was moving. And after 6 lost years, that was enough.